What can be said to people who claim that Sumerian culture is older than the Bible? First of all, the Sumerians would be around the time of Nimrod. They are very possibly the same people who were from Atorio and Babel. Moses came after that, yes, but that does not mean that what the Sumerians wrote is more correct than what Moshe wrote. Just because it was written later does not mean it is lesser or less important. On the other hand, what the Sumerians wrote was written by men, reflecting their experiences and their perspective on life as they recognized the time in which they lived. While Moses wrote the Torah being dictated by an angel, and the Torah that was written by the Almighty, Yahweh. So it is much higher, and I know that many people might say, oh, but that's a matter of faith. Moses is a man, Moses wrote it. The Sumerians are men, the Sumerians wrote, so since they were first, it is more important. Once again, that doesn't make sense, because we would have to look at the text. What does the Sumerian text say? Does it teach morality? No. What does it teach? Nothing. It simply tells stories, and stories that can also be reflected in writing. Therefore, it shows that there is indeed a truth, but one thing from the perspective of the human being, and another perspective from the Almighty. And by studying the Torah, one can come to realize, if one studies it truly deeply and with an open heart and without prejudices and so on, that it is written by the Creator of all things. And he himself proves it by saying things through Moses that it was impossible for Moses to know, putting things in the Torah that could not have been known at that time, such as the fact that the pig is the only animal that has a split hoof and does not chew the cud. And that is the only one that the writing mentions as such, and it has been so since Moses wrote it. The arguments they present are actually not valid, and as I say, it is a matter of comparing what one says and what the other says, because in relation to the Eternal Almighty, time does not matter. So what does it matter if one was written before and another after? What do they say? Who wrote them? And for what purpose? Those are the questions a person should ask themselves, and therefore analyze the writings to make a decision about which is more important. It is said that the Tanakh was copied from the Sumerian, but we need to see. I would really like to know where that comes from and to show the comparisons. As I said, there are some similarities regarding Noah, for example, but Noah is mentioned in 250 cultures around the world. Just because the Sumerians were the first to write it, or the first according to historians, does not make them more special, clearly. So, just because there are some connections, and one was written before, it does not mean that the other was entirely based on that. It means they are telling stories that occurred in human history, which both peoples experienced and therefore described in their respective writings. But the Torah, and you say Tanakh, the Tanakh contains the law and the prophets and the writings. So, to say that all of that, the Old Covenant, was based on Sumerian writings, seems to me to be someone who simply does not know what the Old Covenant says.